For as long as D&D has been around, science fiction has been a part of our fantasy gaming. Don't believe me? Look no further than Pathfinder, my game of choice. And while they did release Starfinder relatively recently, which is a science fiction update to Pathfinder and so much more, even as far back as the early days, Pathfinder has incorporated a lot of science fiction elements into the game. This is the Emerald Spire Super Dungeon, which is actually a crashed starship that has decayed over time and has been filled with these fantasy denizens in addition to the tech elements. Aside from Emerald Spire, the Iron Gods adventure path takes the players through several ancient starships, as well as has them finding technological devices and fighting robots. And yes, even giant robots, which are my favorite kind of robot. But as far back as AD&D, we've had science fiction elements to the game. Not only were more than one early adventures taking place in the concept of the crashed starship, the Mind Flayers, one of the more iconic D&D monsters, are aliens, illithids, creatures from another planet. And it's awesome. So, why do more fantasy games stay away from science fiction? And the answer is that it's fantasy. However, there is a difference between traditional fantasy and D&D-esque fantasy. So, Dungeons & Dragons is a storytelling game where first and foremost, the awesome, the fun takes priority, at least according to most people you talk to. And while I myself am a big fan of the rules, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't throw in a giant robot. If anything, giant robots add to the fun. Case in point, one of the games I'm currently running has the players hopping between different realities, and some of those realities are very different than what you might think of in traditional fantasy. In fact, they have explored an Emerald Spire-style crashed starship, and now use some technology mixed in with their fantasy to fight an enemy that is also powered by this tech. But how can you apply this to your D&D Pathfinder fantasy game? Easily. There is a conversion for the Gunslinger that exists for D&D 5th edition, as well, of course, in Pathfinder, where it came from. And that is such a fun class. Not a lot of game masters that do homebrew settings are cool with guns, but Gunslingers are awesome. And you can easily take that and just reflavor the bullets as energy beams if you'd like. That works well enough for 3rd edition 3.5 clones. But where does it fit into the story? Well, think about John Carter of Mars, one of the inspirations for Dungeons & Dragons, or at the very least recommended reading material. You don't have to go full Star Trek with it. Look no further than H.G. Wells and Jules Verne. Take that old idea of what science fiction could be and apply it to your games. Let's take 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. An amazing submarine that takes the players on a journey around the bottom of the ocean. That's a totally different adventure than one where they're just wandering around in generic Fantasy World X. Or we could take a note from the Emerald Spire. Perhaps your players are exploring and they hear rumors of this ancient temple, and they go to explore it, and as they get further down, it gets weirder and weirder, only to find the remnants of a civilization that might have sent scouts out to this planet millions, thousands, hundreds of years ago, what have you, And yeah, it's awesome. There is functionally no difference between high enough technology and magic. In fact, magic is often the inspiration for science fiction. So, if you think that, say, technology, there's no way to do it without breaking your game, reflavor some magic. Magic missile. You say magic missile, I say target lock ray gun. You say cone of cold, I say frost beams. And it's just my thoughts on it. Just don't be afraid to get weird with your D&D. Don't be afraid to incorporate non-traditional elements into your fantasy worlds. After all, you're not writing a novel, you're playing a game. Thank you.